All right, good morning. So, my name is Terry Sandmeyer, and I'm happy to be here to talk about goat hunting with you guys here today. And congratulations to everybody that drew a license here today. So how many drew goat licenses today? Nice. How many have actually hunted goats before? Just a few of you, but there's a lot of people that haven't. That's really good. So how many of you drew sheep and goat licenses? I always like to find out this one. Just one? I think there's a couple, but that's poor son of a gun. You're going to have a busy summer and a lot of things to do here this year. Oh, yeah, sorry. How's that? Is that better? All right. So I've been guiding sheep and goat hunters for over 20 years, and this has been one of my favorite part of the hunting season is the sheep and goat orientation that the Colorado Parks and Wildlife put on. There's so many of you guys happy faces walking in the door, and you guys have your whole hunting season out in front of you right now, full of ambition and a lot of hopes and dreams getting out there into the woods. So who's ready to go hunting? For goat hunting, some of our seasons start September 1st, or September 4th. All right, who is really prepared to go goat hunting, has the gear, is physically ready, and knows what they're gonna do during their goat hunt? It's a little hard to be completely ready. As a guide, I'm constantly getting ready to work to get ready for my hunts all the way up until I start up the truck and I leave my home and to get out there into the woods. So what do you really need to go hunting? You need your weapon and you need your license. Everything else is kind of comfort a little bit after that. I know those of you that have permits are excited and a little bit anxious about getting out there, but hopefully we can quell some of those anxieties out there here today with the goat presentation. So I've been asked to talk about goat scouting, stalking, and hunting techniques. If you have any questions, stop me, and I'll answer some questions or point them to the direction to have those those questions answered. And I'll cover some of the habits that I observed and what my plan is on going on goat hunts, both preseason and while hunting. When I start scouting, I try to identify 3 to 4 goats that I will specifically be going after when I'm up there. It's a pretty good idea to have an idea of what their range and what their routine is, and I put together information from my scouting trips in the summertime to create a plan. I usually have a plan A, B, and C, sometimes even D, E, and F, because as a guide I have to always have a plan out there. So my objective today is to give you some information so you can prepare, develop, and successfully harvest your goats. Last year, the Colorado Parks and Wildlife gave out 220 goat licenses. Well, the Parks and Wildlife doesn't really give out the licenses, but they issued 220 tags. 22 of those tags were unused. The people never even went out and went hunting. The remaining 198 hunters took a total of 158 goats. That's 80% success for goats last year. However, 40 people that did not harvest their goat for one reason or another, if it was personal or some other reason, they did not get their goat. I think a lot of people didn't get their goat last year because they failed to plan. And they didn't do their homework, they weren't in condition, and they didn't find any, or they misjudged the goats that they did find. Some of them may have been looking for that 10-inch goat, that 10-inch billy that's out there. Last year, there was no 10-inch goats taken. I think in 2016, there was like one 10-inch goat out there, so those are kind of the mystical animals out there. So all of you guys have waited way too long to get this goat tag, and you have to do everything you can to try to harvest that. So good beginnings make for good endings, and this is a good day to begin. So the animal with the long black horns, or the black horns and the long white beard, is only part of the trophy. The other part of the hunt, the other part is the hunt and the very country that they call home. The earth stands on end, the air is thin, and it makes make you work for every step and every breath. It's been said that sheep hunting gets into your blood. I remember the first time I held a really good set of ram horns, and it's pretty awesome. But goat hunting, it gets into your heart and it gets into your soul. I love to hunt goats, and I love the country and the challenges and the rewards of goat hunting. Your season started the day that you guys got the notification that you guys drew your tag. Now, some of you just have over 3 months to get ready before your season starts. Now you're going to have to plan and know how you're going to approach your hunt. You have to schedule time to talk with a biologist, which they're here today, which is a great time. Review hunter surveys. Talk with other guys who have hunted goats in your area. Talk with guides and outfitters, an invaluable resource. And acquire gear, optics, and clothing for your hunt. do your scouting, find your campsite. Look at goats, look at live goats, and look at goats that are in like the Parks and Wildlife Office and museums, taxidermy shops. Try to figure out what the difference is between a 9-inch goat and a 7.5-inch goat. Look to see if you can start to find the difference, to tell the difference between the billies and the nannies. I think somebody's doing a presentation later about sex and identification of goats, but that's something that you got to do, and you have to try to put it into applicable sense when you're out there in the field. You'll find that billies tend to slick out on their coats a lot sooner, especially in the summertime, and the nannies really hold on to their hair later into the season. So there's a lot of things for you guys to do in the next few months, and I would recommend you guys coming up with a plan, and plan for scouting, plan for hunting, and set goals, write them down, revise them, and but follow your plan. Who has a plan already? Who's all ready to go with that plan? My plan has 3 main points that I plan for: scouting, preparation, and hunting. So scouting is the first one I'm going to start with, and this is how I like to go goat scouting. I like them to climb up on the hood, and I can really get a good look at them when I'm up there. So, like I said, most of my plan focuses on scouting because it does so many different purposes while you're up there. It's really just a continuation of your hunt, or it's a prequel to your hunt, and then when the hunt starts, you're just continue on with that scouting, but then you can actually go out there and pull the trigger on something. So fortune favors the well-prepared minds, and I do stand behind that. So you, okay. Is that a little bit better? Can you hear me back there? Okay, sorry about that. So you got to know the country that you'll be spending the next 3 months in. You got to do your map work. You got to know the trails. And maps are really good to tell you how far it is from point A to point B, but it doesn't tell you how long it takes you to get to between those points. And so you really have to get out there and hike those trails that are out there on your map. You have to find out your access points. How are you going to access it? Is it going to be horseback? Is it going to be hiking? You're going to be going by vehicle? You're looking for your options of access all over the unit, not just on trailheads. You're looking for your options for egress, something that if you have to get out of a country that maybe you didn't go in, you start on one trailhead and you have to go out on another trailhead, that's part of your preparation that you need to know. Just in case of emergency, you can't go back the way you came from. You need to find out the best way to get off the mountain. What if weather stops you and you have to bail off the mountain? You need to know where you're going. What if the goat goes around the mountain here and he goes into a completely another drainage? Do you go over and follow him? Or if you know and you've done your scouting, you know that you can or you can't go in after that goat if he goes around the mountain. So start with your networking here with the Parks and Wildlife, past hunters, hunting reports, and then there's a lot of internet forums out there. So internet research and forums are great, and talking to other hunters are great, but really nothing beats putting your boots on the ground out there. You can do a lot of scouting online, and you can do looking at the hunting maps and where people killed previous animals before, but nothing beats actually getting out there and doing your scouting on the mountain. So getting into glassing. You need to get comfortable when you're glassing. This is going to be the majority part of your scouting. Get comfortable, take the time to go out there and go do your scouting. Look for your glassing points, a point of where a glass where you can cover the best part of the country that you're looking at. You don't want to just leave something untouched, or you don't want to get into a spot that doesn't give you the good access or a good view of the hillside. So you want to look for those good vantage points. Sometimes when I'm on the hillside and I know there's animals in the hillside, I look around and I find like a hillside or a vantage point where I may be able to get to or look at a later date, saying, hey, I can see where I'm at from maybe that ridgeline over there, and that's probably going to be the best place for me to be. So glassing helps you out to learn the country. Also, it helps you out to study and to really know the animal. So when you're glassing in the summertime, there's a lot of work out there on the hillside that you're just looking after the animals, looking through the country. You're looking for like their daily behaviors and what they may be doing during the day. You might be looking for if you can see patches of hair, if it's a nanny or if it's a billy. You're starting your judging of the sex of the animal and trying to judge the size of the animal. You're looking for the daily routines of the animals as well. What do they do? When did they get up? When did they lay down? What do they do when they do get up in the middle of the day? Do they go for water? Where will they go for? All those kind of go into your plan of your hunting. When do you see them feed? Most of the time, goats get up right after sunrise, and they feed until about 9:30, 10:30 in the morning. And then they lay down. They lay down for about, 2 to 4 hours. 96% of their summer feed is grass-like substances. In the wintertime, it's about 80% of grass-like substances that they eat. So you're not going to find them in the rocks. They're not going to find them in places where it's not grass. You're going to find them in grass. And like here, we got two billies that found a really nice grassy spot here. So these two billies, actually, I always take note of animals that have different type of behavior, untypical behavior while I'm up there. These guys didn't even get out of their bed until 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. Then they would come up. Sometimes I didn't even see them when I was doing my summer scouting until mid-morning, late morning. And then all of a sudden they would come out from wherever they're laying at, behind a rock or whatever it could be. Then they would feed during the middle of the day. Then they would go lay back again. They would stay into their bed until almost dark. So I always take a note of untypical behavior, because it could be a sick animal, or it's something that's not healthy, or it could be something special. And actually one of these billies is a 10-inch billy right here. So when you're looking at goats and there's snow on the hillside, which happens quite often, especially at long distances, you're looking at differences in the shape of the animal. And so with this snow, with the snow, you have jagged edges around the snow, and whereas where you have the goats here and down here, they're a smoother line. So when you're looking at a long distance, you see a smoother white dot, and compared to a bunch of jagged lines, and then that could be a goat from a very long distance. While you're up there glassing, you're finding out when and where did they lay down. Is it a typical, is it something they do every single day, or did they change it up throughout their pattern or through the summertime? What kind of other observations can you have, on your goats when you're out there looking for them in the morning time or during the summertime? Here you've got a bunch of snow, and there's like one lone goat in here. And so you're looking across the whole hillside. You may look across many hillsides and only find one or two goats, and you're just trying to find them. So here we got a billy laying all by himself right in the middle of the snow fields. And I always like to see lone goats sometimes, and something I want to pay attention to. So after goats get up in the morning and they feed, they lay down, and if they're not disturbed, they usually stay in the same area in the vicinity for quite a period of time. And usually if they're not disturbed, you can find them in that area. So other observations is like here, we all know Mount Evans. We have a road up there. How do these goats interact with situations like this, where there's vehicles and people around? There's a lot of goat country where there's a lot of 14ers. How do those goats behave when people are around them? Do they spook? Do they run away? Do they kind of tolerate them? The type of goats that you're looking at, you need to know what kind of their tendencies are, so that way it helps you put together like a stock or a plan if you do find the goat that you want to go after. How does the weather affect them when the goats are up there? What happens if it snows? What happens if it rains? Sometimes you have to sit through a rainstorm to find that out. But after it rains, do they get up and start feeding? Do they feed during rainstorms, or do they kind of hunker down and wait it out? Watching the interactions of the young ones with the nannies. Do you find any billies in with them? Or is it just strictly nannies and kid groups? Natural attractions and avoidances. Here we got a mineral lick, and so we have goats coming to the mineral lick multiple times during the day, and they're trying to get that minerals. Do you see them doing that in your area, or is there an area where there's a bunch of cliffs or there's no water where you just don't see goats and they're trying to avoid those areas? Also with the observation, you can start looking for identification again and sex. Here, this young billy right over here, it's kind of hard to tell in this picture, but you can actually see a scrotum sac there. And so if you're looking at animals for a long time, then you can kind of see what's going on. Here you have a nanny urinating. That's a good telltale sign that it's a nanny. They kind of squat like a dog a little bit more. Whereas here we have a young billy right here, and he's stretched out a little bit more. So sometimes if you're trying to find identification, watching them for a little bit longer of a time helps you try to get that identification of their sex. Sheep and goat interactions. What happens when the goats get around other animals? Here we got a bunch of sheep, and we got 3 billies here. I actually watched a little lamb walk right between the billies, and they just kept on going different directions, and they barely paid any attention to each other up here. But that could be different in every unit. If there's an area where it's just a lot of sheep, not that many goats, you might see the sheep blow out. But if you have goats, they might interact with different animals if they're not used to seeing those. So where will the goats be? Well, if they aren't pushed or pressured, they usually stay in the same basin. Older goats tend to stay are a little bit less tolerant to people and outside disturbances while they're up there. So if there's a lot of noise, sometimes the billies just kind of shy away from that, and you find them like in little bit of corners and off areas. Then in the typical areas, you may think that you might be finding some goats in. So when you're glassing, you get familiar with the lay of the land, where the bedding and feeding areas are here, where the predominant wind currents are, especially for the archers that are going up there, knowing where you might be able to stalk from and which angles or directions would be better for you guys to stalk onto. In the summer, it's great to get up into the high country and start seeing goats and getting up to that country, but is that summer country where your goats are going to be in the fall time when you guys are hunting? That's a little bit harder to tell. That's where some of the kill site maps come into effect, talking to other hunters, talking to guides, outfitters. Those are things that can try to tell you where the goats may be in the fall time when you're actually up there hunting. Nothing beats, though, just going up there, again, glassing for the goats. Here we have 5 goats in this picture. And then we're looking for the differences between the snow and the goats. And sometimes you just don't know until you spend some time, then all of a sudden they start moving. And so we have these goats here. We have 4 down here, and then we have 1 laying down way up there. So when you get into your glassing and your spotting, we're going to talk a little bit about optics. So you want to get the best optics you can possibly get, because you're going to be spending a lot of time looking through that glass, and you want to have the best definition and clarity that you can possibly have while you're looking through that glass. I use Swarovskis, but that's just because I'm in the business, but whatever you guys can do is what you want to have up there. I take a 10 by 42 binocular. I do most all my scouting and my glassing with a 10 by 42, and then I always carry a 20 to 60 variable scope. So then that way I can zoom in on that 60 power, find out the sex of the animal, find out the size of the horns, and tell a lot of detail about long distances. So that's very, very important. Also, by glassing, get heads on the tripod that have a fluid head that you can really pan back and forth across the hillside with, and it's easy to move around. If you're messing with a tripod that has a sticky head, nothing's more frustrating that you see something and it's walking around the hillside and you just can't get your scope on it because your head is just like bouncing around and you can't get locked in onto that animal. And so when I'm glassing, one of the biggest things is getting the technique, or with my techniques is the location. So I try to get to a spot where I can see, again, the best area or the best view of the area that I want to be looking at. Secondly is timing. Right at dawn. I usually glass like at dawn all the way up until 9 o'clock in the morning, and then I'm getting to my glassing spot about 5:30 in the afternoon, and I'm staying there all the way till dark. So I spend the prime times looking at the prime areas, and so I can know the best if their goat or anything I'm looking for is in that area. You got to use discipline when you're when I glass. I use discipline. I grid, and I grid in an up and down pattern, and so I don't leave anything unturned, and I go straight all the way across until I have everything covered if I think there's going to be an animal there or not. Sometimes first thing in the morning, I might put my glasses up and hit the grassy ridge lines and where I might think the animals might be right at the first part, kind of cherry pick it, but then after that I slow back down, I get comfortable, and I get disciplined, and I grid off the whole mountain there. So when I'm glassing, I'm looking for difference in shapes. I'm looking for movement. That's always the best way. And then difference in colors. Goats are white. If there's no snow out there, then you can pick them apart pretty good. But if you have spotted snow like this, it gets a lot more difficult, especially if all the spotted snow is about the same size as of a goat. You can make your eyes kind of go kind of buggy while you're looking for them. Or if you have all snow. Goats are kind of a yellowish tint, and they do stand out when they're against the snow. Yep, during your glassing, if you find animals, record it, put it together in part of your scouting plan, and so that way you know when and where you see the animals and what they were doing, and it helps you kind of determine what you're going to do in your hunting season. So with gear, we talked about the optics, your weapon. You want to be very proficient with your weapon. Most shots that I experience are between 250 yards and 350 yards. And when you climb that whole mountain, you get your shot, you get your opportunity at your goat, you don't want to be questioning your rifle at all. You have too many other things to worry about. So whatever weapon, if it's a rifle or a bow or whichever way you want to shoot, and it's the most comfortable and it's the one that you're most comfortable with, that's the one that you want to be taking up on the mountain with you. You got to know your effective range and your weapon's effective range and limitations. Shoot in the wind. Find out what happens in shooting in the wind. It's windy up there above tree line. I've been glassing and hunting up there where you have 50-mile-per-hour crosswinds up there sometimes. Clothing. You're up there glassing. You're waiting for your goat. Then you start having storms coming in. Your visibility gets socked in. Then all of a sudden you're just sitting there on the mountain. So having good gear is very important. I always layering system. They have tons of layering systems out there which are completely awesome. So you can take it off, put it back on when you need it. One of the most important pieces of my equipment is my rain gear. Rain gear for the rain, the snow, but I use it mostly for the wind. I can just have a light jacket on, and then I can put my rain jacket on, and it just gives me another 10 degrees, 20 degrees of comfort. And so it's really important to cut the wind that way. Some of you guys might be hunting in snow, which is really fun. So late seasons, you have the snow, you have snowstorms, you have windstorms, extremely cold temperatures. Been up there late October, -10, -30 degrees without wind chill. And so you want to definitely be prepared for that kind of exposure out there. Ski goggles. For the late season, that's always a good thing that you can throw in your pack. It keeps the blowing snow from out of your eyes. And then if you get a good snowstorm and the sun comes out, it helps out with sunburn and it helps out with snow blindness and just protecting your eyes that way. Hunting in those late seasons, you can take ski poles, snowshoes, but I always tend not to try to stay in one spot too long. I'd like to try to keep a progression on my hunt, so I get up into the goat area, and I may walk to a glassing area, glass for a little bit, and as I start to get cold, I walk to another area, and so I keep a little bit warm, but I don't get too cold. I don't want to get too hot just by climbing straight up the mountain to get sweaty, and then that can just tend to lead to bad things later if you're wet up there on the mountain. Transportation. How are you guys going to get in and out of your area? That's part of the preparation that you need to think about. What kind of camp are you going to have? Are you going to be in a tent? Are you going to be in an RV, hotel? How are you going to prepare your meals? You're going to be up early in the morning and you're going to be up late at night, and you're going to have very long days, so have all that part of your preparation and what you're going to be doing on your plan. Where are you going to camp? After hiking around a few times, finding some goats, you might start picking out that location for that camp to start off your hunt. So safety is a very big one that you need to really kind of pay attention to and actually plan for. We want everybody to go out there, have a great time, but we want everybody to come back as well. So first aid, medical aids, being prepared, what you have out there. Communication, that's one of the biggest aids that you can have out there. How are you going to communicate? Are you going to have cell coverage where you're going to be at? Do you have some place that you're going to be hunting with somebody, or is somebody going to know where you're going to be at? If you go up there by yourself and you may not have cell coverage all the time, let somebody know back at home or someplace that knows what you're going to be doing, where you're going, when they can expect to hear from you. Set up some communication times. Is it going to be, every night at a certain time? Is it going to be once a week? But set up a communication time so that way if you don't communicate, somebody else knows what's going on out there in the woods. Leave maps and ideas where you may be at and maybe hunting, so that way if you don't communicate or if you don't make it back, that somebody knows where you may be for that time during your hunt. Put in a plan of action if something does happen. Just a simple cut or broken bone, make sure you have your first aid kit with you. But what if you come down with a bad sickness? What's going to be your plan of action with that sickness? What if you become immobilized? How are you going to get your communication out if you're immobilized and you can't move anywhere? No communication at all. Where's the local search and rescue or those rescue services? The sheriff department numbers, how long is it going to take for them to even get into your area or the country that you guys are in? Those are all kind of important things to kind of even look at. Spot comes up with a pretty good GPS that sends out text and emergency messages, and sometimes even good messages, just to send out a text, say, hey, I'm all good, made it back to camp, and you can pre-program them in your spot, and you can send them out. But then also, if you end up in a bad situation, you can just push the emergency button, and it sends out a GPS location to where you're at, and search and rescue will get mobilized for you. But the best safety that you guys can have is hunt with somebody else. Hunt with a buddy, hunt with somebody, because all those scenarios and anything that could happen, if you have somebody else out there with you, then it's a very good chance that you can get things taken care of and you can get yourself out of the woods. I know a lot of you guys are experienced hunters and woodsmen, but when you get up into that extreme country and that high altitude up there, things change completely. And even the most experienced and physical able guys up there, if something happens, and it makes it really tough to get out of that country. It is so tough to find somebody that would hunt with you, because a hunting buddy, to be able to hike the mountain every single day and they don't have a tag, and to be able to go out there with you, it's really tough. Maybe day one they might be there, but day two, day three, and then you're still climbing the mountain, it's kind of tough. So do the best you can and use the resources that you have. All right, so physical conditioning. That's a big one, especially for goats. You're going to be up there where the air is thin and everything is vertical. Everything is vertical. Doesn't matter if you're going downhill, uphill, it's just all vertical. So John here, he was one of my clients, and he has a bow and he has a rifle on, and he has half of a goat in his pack right there. It doesn't show up much because he's carrying mostly meat, but he wanted to harvest with the bow, but it was a couple days into the hunt, and I was like, bring your rifle just in case we can't make it happen. And so he brought both, but John was in excellent physical conditioning. And when we found his goat, it was another 2 miles down a ridgeline after we already got to where we thought his goat was going to be. And we went down, got his goat, and then we had to hike it back all the way 2 miles back up over a pass, and he was able to do it. So he didn't limit himself, and he was able to do and have a great trip because he was smiling the whole way when he was doing it. When you're getting ready for your hunt, climbing the mountain is the best way to get into shape. But besides that, riding a bike, running 2 or 3 times a week is a great way to do it. If you're hiking around this summertime, carry a pack. I carry a 35-pound pack when I'm hunting all the time. Just my optics and water and everything else is 35 pounds. So carrying that 35 pounds anywhere, anything that you're doing from here on out, all the way up into your hunting season, is a great way to go to start getting into shape. Start building up your cardio and your leg muscles while you're up there. Most guys would tell you the reason why maybe their hunters didn't get like the goat that the hunter wanted, or they didn't get a goat, is usually based upon the physical conditioning of the hunter. So it's a very key point, and you should definitely make sure you're in good shape for it. You can never be in too good of shape. You can work out all summer long, and it's just going to be a better time for when you're up there in the mountains, so you can never be in too good of shape on the mountain. So So you got emotional conditioning as well, along with the physical conditioning. You go up there and you're hunting around for multiple days at a time. It starts to drain on you. Things aren't working out for you. Getting up every single morning to be able to climb that mountain again. So that's what the preseason scouting is for. You're getting up there, you do it for multiple days. Don't just go up there for one day. Try to plan a 3 or 4 day trip. And so you're up there and you can start hiking every single day. So you start to know where your physical and emotional limitations are. And it's starting to mentally toughen you up while you're up there on the mountain. You got to recognize when you can continue and when you need a rest, but prepare yourself mentally, emotionally, and physically for it. All right. So. Okay, you got your preparation, you got your scouting done, now you're actually hunting. So all that scouting is just all of a sudden a continuation into your hunting, or it's a precursor to your hunting. And so now you're taking that, and now you're going to start doing your stalking. So once you spotted your goats, and then by the way, we have 3 goats in here, and they're kind of spread out in here. And so once you do find your goats, and you had time to evaluate them. Is it going to be a Billy, a Nanny? Is it the one that you're going to be wanting to go after? You've got to really carefully check where you're going to go and how you're going to be able to get on these animals. Kind of tough with the smaller picture here, but just from what we're looking at, where's your access points? Is your access points up here? Are they going to be over here? Maybe there's a ridge line over here that you can get to and be able to get to a shot. So before you even get up there, really evaluate and look at the whole hillside and countryside where you can get into the goats and where you can get out with the goat or just get off the mountain if you ever have to. So in addition to some optics you can have when you're starting to go on some stalks, knee pads. They make some cool, pants out there that have knee pads in it. It's really good while you're hiking around into all this shale and loose stuff. Sometimes just on sharp rocks. Some of the country has like really, really sharp rocks. Leather gloves. I always take leather gloves as well because any other kind of gloves just get torn up in the rocks. Sunglasses and full face protection against the sun, and you can actually use it as a face mask as well. And if you guys get blessed and you guys get snow, I don't know if that's blessed is the right word, but if you got snow, then you guys can use like a white suit and to be able to put a white suit over it, and it actually adds some camouflage and another technique you can use during those times. So as I was glassing, never overlook just the areas that you don't think that you might not find goats. Like here, it's kind of see in this picture, you can see the 2 goats that we have here, but when I was actually glassing, there was only a couple snowbanks out there, and I was looking over a lot of brown country, and it was bright sun, and actually the snowbanks actually got washed out. How I found these guys is I found their tracks here. I seen the tracks, and I was like, there's some tracks, something came through those snowbanks, and I looked closer, and there's 2 billies laying down right there. So when you're out there hunting in the snow, you look for tracks and just try to follow them. If you got a lot of snow, sometimes you can lead you right to an animal that you may have otherwise just overlooked. So when you're putting together your stock again, see we got some goats here. So when you're putting together your stock, typically the tradition is to come in from above. Like if you want to come in from up the top here, this would be a great place to get to be able to see your goats here. You probably have about a less than 100-yard shot. Over here, maybe a 200-yard shot if you can get to this ridge line. So coming in from up above or at the same level on the sides is a great way to come in on the goats. But you can in some areas, especially with the areas with a lot of hikers up there, you can come in from below. Goats are used to seeing a lot of people hiking on the trails down below, and they're used to that kind of noise in the area. So if you do, and you can stalk from below, and you think it's comfortable, and the animal looks like it's comfortable when you're coming in from below, stay out in the open. Don't play cat and a mouse with the goat, trying to hide behind rocks or a ridge line. Try to keep yourself visible so they can just sit there and watch you. They may let you get into a range for a shot that way. Just kind of analogy is if you're walking in the mall and you see some guy underneath the bench looking at you, you're going to take notice, and it's going to be a little bit of a threatening posture and something that you don't want to take notice on. So stay out into the open if you do decide to go that way. But I always try to come in from the top. Absolutely. Stealth is the best way to do it if you can stay hidden, not be out in the open. And when I'm coming up over a ridge right here, and this is what I see, and here's my Billy, and he's looking away, doing what he wants to do, that's exactly where I want to be. That's exactly what I want to see. And so now I can take my time, wait for my shot, and be able to take my shot. So their sense of smell and their eyesight are pretty keen. They can see and smell really well. Pay attention to wind currents while you're getting up there stalking. A lot of times when I have billies really blow out on me, it's been when they smell me. I get in really close, and then the wind currents change, and all of a sudden those goats just don't know where you're at, and they get out of there. Part of their defense is to know where you're at and where they're at, and knowing that you can't get to them. And so if they don't know where you're at and they smell you, they're going to run. They're going to try to get to a place where they can find out where you're at. If they see you, they may just move off into a safer place and some cliffs, maybe where you don't want to go after them, or you shouldn't go after them, and they'll sit up there and they'll look at you and they'll watch you, trying to figure out what's going on and what's going on with you. When the goats leave, a lot of times, they don't really run all the time. They kind of just get up and move really methodically up through the rocks. When they're getting out of the country, they just get up and just start walking, and they have an area where they want to go in mind, and they just get up and start walking, and they just don't stop, and they don't slow down. Then next thing you know, they're gone. They're over the next ridge and over into the next basin. So they hear pretty good too, and they hear things, and when you're up there hunting goats, you're going to be rolling rocks, and you're going to be making noise that way. So that kind of noise isn't all that concerning. If you roll some rocks, maybe just stop, take a couple minutes, let the noise subside, and then you can continue on. But what they do take notice on is human voices, human noise, unnatural noises, metal against rocks, metal on metal, clothes up against rocks or brushes or anything like that. So when you do find your goat, you plan your stalk, you get up on the mountain, you spend hours stalking into position, you come up to the ridgeline, you get into full draw, or you get ready to come up over the scope, and you look over, and then you see a wet spot where your goat was. During that time when you were climbing up, he had gotten up and moved away from you. You may not know where he's at. Wayne Gretzky even said that what made him a great hockey player is that he didn't go skate to where the puck was, but he skated to where the puck was going to be. So it's great to know where your goat's going to be. Through scouting, you should have an idea of their routine and some of the things that they like to do, and how long it would take for you to get into one place or another, and how long it takes for the goats to get to one place or another. Many times on a stalk, you leave and it takes about 1.5 hours to 3 hours to get up into position, and you come up close and you get up there, and then the goat has moved on and are in someplace else. So if you know where the goats are going to be, then it's a great chance that you can get up into a place where they're going to be, like in the afternoon or something, instead of just going to right where they are. And we had this goat coming up here, and we were in the right spot, and he ended up in a perfect spot that we can, wait for a good shot on the goat. So knowing where they're going to go and where they're going to be is a great asset to you. So you've done everything right, and you're ready to pull trigger, and then there's a couple things to remember. Where is this goat going to fall when you shoot it? So the goat horns are brittle and they do break, and you can look at some harvest reports where you got 5-inch bases and 2-inch horns, and it's not because they grow like icicles, but it's usually probably because they probably broke off after the goat was shot, and they went and tumbled and broke off some of their horn. And also, you don't want one to fall into an abyss or some place where you just can't even go in and get it and retrieve it. And you also got to look after your personal safety as well. You want to be able to get in there, get your goat, and get off the mountain with your goat as well. And it's always easier to climb up rocks than it is to climb down rocks, especially if you have a heavy pack on. Yeah, so this goat's overlooking a cliff. I probably would not take a shot on that goat there. So I always wait until goats are actually facing inward into the mountain or side hill on the mountain, because when they're shot, their first instinct is just to go forward. So like if this goat was hit, he would probably just want to take a step down there and start the momentum going down. You don't want to start that downhill momentum. If he's facing uphill, he may start running sideways or running uphill. Then if he falls and he tumbles, it's going to happen, and then that's fine. But don't give him that extra momentum to propel him down the mountain where breakage can happen. So you're going to take your time while you're up there. You got to plan part of the scouting and looking up the mountain. Know where you're going before you actually take that step. Here, packing out a goat, you're saying, okay, here we go. We need to make it out over here. We can just go right down this chute right here. And if we had just kept on going right down that chute, we would end up running into this ice fall right here. And so knowing where we're at in the country, where the goat ended up at, that we can actually plan and prepare to be able to get up and around. And we went up around here, and you can see our trail coming down here where we came down off the side of those ice falls. So always paying attention to those cliffs and don't get cliffed out, and what may happen if you do get that goat or you get into that kind of country. So goats have a really incredible will to live sometimes. I think sometimes there's just not enough nerve between the body and the brain, so when they get shot, that the body just doesn't tell the brain that they're actually going to die. And so they take off and they go running. I killed a goat, and I shot him 4 times with a 300 Ultra Mag with a 180 grain bullet before he ended up falling. And so it's kind of tough when you do it, but when you do get a shot, just keep after it, and sometimes things just happen. Goats fall do happen. Goats can come down, you get them rolling on a hillside, and they can just keep, all goats roll just a little bit. If goats roll like a barrel roll on their belly, usually less breakage happens. But if they start going head over tea kettle, then that's where like the major breakage happens, and they're sitting there and they're really smacking those horns really hard on rocks as they're falling off of cliffs that way. So here's a goat that, not too bad, but didn't make it out that well. So that stuff can happen, and like Greg, who was talking up here, he's a taxidermist, tell him that he's the best and he can fix this kind of stuff. So this is kind of a shoot or no shoot scenario. We got our goats here, and if we wanted to take a goat here, is this a place we want to take a shot? Can't tell the whole mountain from this picture, but just what we're looking at in the picture, I'm going to wait. I'm going to see where else those goats go. Maybe there's a better spot to take that shot. So on the anatomy of the goat, note that especially in the later seasons, as you get later into the season, the hair on the top of their spine can be 4 to 6 inches. Earlier in the seasons, it's not as much, but when you're looking at it and you're trying to pick your spot to take a shot, you have a lot of hair on the top, and you're going to have a lot of hair on the bottom here. And so as this goat's kind of position, still your best option is kind of right in the center of their body there to start picking out your shot. Now, in my opinion, or in my experience, I started like having guys shoot right behind the shoulder, midway in the body, maybe 2 or 3 inches up right in there. And for whatever reason, I haven't had a goat go more than 50 yards after shooting them there. And so since wounded animals is one of my biggest pet peeve, being able to put a goat down really quick, prevent the rolling in or wounded animal, putting in a good shot, just always use your best judgment when you're out there and what you're used to shooting. So a lot of you guys have 10 days or better seasons that you're going to be hunting in, and later in the season, the coat of the goat is going to be a lot better than it is going to be at the beginning of the season. When it starts to get into August and September, October, the coats are going to start growing drastically, and even from October to November, it's just amazing how much hair that they actually put on. So the longer you wait, the longer the hair is going to be, and that a good haired up goat is part of the trophy as well. I don't suggest everybody go late, but it's just something to keep in mind when you're actually planning out your hunt. So you have an August goat here, and you can see how short the hair is. And then you got an October goat, and so I'll pull up that one here. And so you can see he's starting to get a little bit more definition. He's starting to get a mane. He's starting to get a little bit of hump on the back over here. He's starting to get a little bit more of a beard. It makes for a pretty mount, and it gets into that typical goat look when you're looking at that Billy. And even from October here, you get into November, then their hair is just like extremely long. It's like big shags, big rugs on these goats. This is a governor hunter, so we were actually hunting mid-November on this goat, and we had, it was cold. It was 20 degrees below, and we had 30-mile-per-hour winds. You can see here the wind blowing and blowing all the hair here, but he was such a beautiful goat, and seeing him sitting there blowing in the wind, it was really fantastic. Not everybody gets that chance, but the later you can hunt in this season, it gives you an opportunity to get a little bit better coat on those goats. And so when you do get a goat, I suggest getting a full body mount. I got a full body mount for my goat because, like I was saying, that's half of the trophy and half of the beauty when you're sitting there looking at a goat. Not everybody can afford it. Not everybody has the space, but if you can swing it, it's something that you definitely want to, try to do for a full body mount. So a lot of people ask if you can eat goat. And how does it taste? What is it like? You can eat goat, and it's, somebody told me it's kind of like kissing your sister. It's not all that great, but it's not all that bad either. But I find that, goats, it's actually pretty good. I just find that it makes, it's a little bit of a grainier type of meat. The taste is actually really good, except for that November goat. It was in the rut, and that one was horrible. But for the most part, they eat a lot of grasses. And so with that grass here in Colorado, it provides some really good tasting meat. They make great roast and that kind of stuff. But it's definitely worth trying. So when you're up there hunting and you get your goat, take lots of pictures. Take lots of pictures on your preparation. Take pictures of your scouting. Take pictures of just up there hiking. I have a bad habit of not taking pictures until we get something down on the ground. But when my hunters give me a bunch of pictures from my hunt, I'm like, man, this is awesome. I need to take more pictures myself. So when you do take pictures, even with the digital cameras are great, still take a lot of different pictures, a lot of different angles. You can start pulling up and you can start picking out the right one. You can look through your 20 different pictures of this pose and find out which one is the best clarity and which one looks the best. This one here, it just turned out, we got him, not a drop of blood, just a really perfect picture, and it was a really beautiful goat. Here with the scenery behind it. So you get your goat, position it, and where you can get your scenery, and that goes into everything that you have. This one's not so great of a picture of the same goat. I liked the pose. I thought it was going to be great when I took the picture, but then after I did, it turned out a little bit fuzzy there. So there's the archer, John, with his goat there. Have fun with your shots. Get something a little bit different, something that you can add to your memories. So if you guys want to do more reading, here's a couple of books that you guys can get into. You got The Beast of the Color of Winter by Doug Chadwick, and then you have Hunt High by Duncan Gilchrist here. So does anybody have any questions? Sir?
For locating the animals using the online Colorado hunting atlas, how do you know whether to use the summer concentration areas or winter concentration areas? Is the difference determined by snow, time of year, weather?
I think they probably have, the question was, what do you use the information between summer ranges and winter ranges? And I would say that those information has been compiled by Parks and Wildlife, I believe, and that the biologist, if summer ranges would be where they're at in the summer, and winter ranges would be where they're at in the winter. In the hunting season, they might be in that transitional point in between those two. So I would just take it for what it is. Sir?
You probably said it already. I find a little Billy out there. He's going to be on his feet how long?
How long are they going to be on their feet?
Yeah.
Depends on the billy, individual billies, the type of terrain that they're in, how much feed are they getting when they're actually up feeding. Some goats can go up and feed and get all their nutrients in an hour, hour and a half, then go back and lay back down. Sometimes older billies, they don't need to feed as long as the younger ones do. So younger goats, younger animals, period, are always constantly eating, and then the older ones, they may just need to eat once or twice a day.
Get up and stretch after 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah, they do. Like after laying down for a couple hours, they might get up and reposition themselves and then lay back down in another position. Any other questions? Caliber selection. That goes back into what are you comfortable shooting? You want to have that, you want to be proficient with your weapon, so when you pull that trigger, just like any other animal, goats aren't extremely large. They are tough, like I was mentioning. When they're hit, it doesn't matter what you hit them with, sometimes they just keep on going. And so just good bullet placement, and so that goes into where you're most proficient in. But I try not to go too light. My preferred caliber is 300 short mag, so that's just me.
Bow hunters use decoy, white suit, vantage, either one.
Yeah, decoy and goats do pay attention to the white suit because it's something that's like them, and so you're going to be drawn, when you do that, you're drawing attention to yourself, especially in bow hunting. You're going to be hunting in a little bit warmer country and time of year, so you're asking to be drawn attention to. Like, I always defer to say stay stealth as long as you possibly can, but if there's just no other possible way to get after a goat and you can't do anything else, why not try it?